Great Britain has a collection of varied landscapes and countryside to rival anywhere else in the world.
And the best way to see it is to walk.
And we are here to provide some ideas and inspiration. We are the team at Walks Around Britain, and we've been discovering some of the most interesting and varied short walks. From the Highlands of Scotland to the Channel Islands. We've been there discovering the best walking Britain has to offer. If you thought walking was just about mountains, then think again. We've got walks in the countryside, along water and the coast, through woodlands and forests, up fells and hills, around historic buildings and our industrial past, and not forgetting walks through our towns and cities. Walks to do by yourself, in a group, or with your family, be they the human or canine kind. Along the way, we'll be telling fascinating stories about the landscape, its people, and its history. It's all designed to get you out and inspired to experience it for yourselves. Welcome to Walks Around Britain. Hello, and you're very welcome to another edition of Walks Around Britain. Now, on today's programme, we've got two walks which are linked by the fact that they're old railway lines. Later in the programme, I walk from York along the old East Coast Main Line. But first, it's to the Isle of Man. This walk takes in an old railway line and a gorgeous part of the coast. By starting at Kirkmichael and down the valley of Glenwillan, along the beach to Glenmore and back along the trackbed. It's a walk of around 3.5 miles and should take around 2.5 hours. Because I've travelled to the island on the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company ferry, I've got the benefit of my own car, and I've parked in the car park just off Station Road. Kirkmichael is only 5.25 miles, as the crow flies, away from the highest point on the Isle of Man, Snae Fell, so the hills of the central belt of the island aren't too far away. Despite its size, the Isle of Man had an extensive railway network by the turn of the 20th century. But by the 1960s, it was in crisis, and the line which had been the Manx Northern Railway, of which Kirkmichael was on, was eventually closed in 1969. Today, these mock-level crossing gates show where the railway once was, along with a section of track. Most of the stations along this old line have long gone. But here at Kirkmichael, they changed their railway station into a different type of station. So whereas in the old days, steam locomotives would stop here carrying passengers and freight, today the station buildings are the home of the local fire station. Although the line was closed in 1969, it wasn't until 1974 when the track was lifted. And in 1993, as part of a year of celebrations to mark the centenary of the Manx Electric Railway, a heritage trail was created on the old track beds between Douglas, Peel and Ramsey. The Manx Northern Railway had some significant challenges on their chosen route around the west coast of the island, one of which was here at the valley of Glenwillan. The line passed over the valley using this plate girder viaduct, which replaced the original in 1922. The year after the track was lifted, the viaduct here was dismantled, and only the supporting towers remain. So to continue the walk, I need to get down to the level of the glen by this narrow path. From the bottom, you can really see the height of the original viaduct. Once over the beck, the walk heads towards the beach on the Isle of Man's coastal path, the Rad na Fáilín. Glenwillan is now an excellent campsite and has a selection of ready-pitch tents available during the summer months. The footpath through the glen leads down to the coast. And what a view! Because of the coastal defences, the Radnorfollian snakes its way above the rocks before dropping down to the beach. There's nothing like a bit of beach walking to warm the soul. Over in the far distance is the coastline of Northern Ireland. Here's where the coastal path has to come inland for a while, and I'm following it up the road to cross over the often busy A4 main road. And into Glen Moor, which is one of the national glens on the island. This is a gorgeous, secluded spot, perfect for some peace and reflection. This was another valley which needed to be crossed by the Manx Northern Railway, and again the stone pillars which once carried the steam trains 70 feet in the air still remain. The Radnorfollian heads to the right here, and I'm heading left over the footbridge over the river through the glen. There's a fairly challenging steep climb to the top of the valley via some steps, and then through an equally challenging overgrown area. But this isn't for long, as I make towards a more open part of the old railway line. This gives you an appreciation for the work needed in cutting through to make this valley. This may be more open, but it means the valley bottom can sometimes become boggy. Make use of the various boards and stones which have been strategically placed. The numerous bridges which carried roads over the railway are still in place, although this one, which carries the A4, has been strengthened with an inner layer of concrete because of the sheer volume of traffic on the road above. I've now reached the south side of the old Glenwillan Viaduct. which means some more steps down on this side. And more up the other side after crossing the beck again. And then it's a short distance along Station Road and back to the car park.
Well, a lovely walk there on the Isle of Man along an old railway line and part of the coast. Well, after the break, I walk between the Sun and Pluto in Yorkshire. Welcome back to Walks Around Britain. Now usually I like to take walks which keep me very much on the ground